When fate crosses forbidden lines, hearts are torn between loyalty and desire. She married my father, but loved me instead as a haunting story of betrayal, passion, and silence, where a young man returns home after years, only to find the woman he once loved is now his stepmother. Every glance hides a secret. Every word trembles with what cannot be said. As truth unravels, love turns into a dangerous game between morality and madness, leaving only one question. How far would you go to protect a love that should never have existed? The night I returned home after 5 years, the rain followed me like an old curse. Each drop struck the windshield with the same rhythm as my heart, heavy, uncertain, and too alive for the silence I was walking into. My father's mansion stood at the edge of the hill, lights glowing in the mist like tired stars. I had left that place to escape memories, but destiny has a cruel sense of humor. It brings you back to the very thing you tried to forget. When the butler opened the door, the smell of lavender and burnt wood filled the hall. I knew that scent. I had memorized it once, back when it belonged to someone I shouldn't have loved. And then I saw her, standing by the staircase, wearing a pale silk gown and that same hesitant smile that used to stop my world. Her eyes widened when they met mine, a mixture of shock, guilt, and something else, something dangerously close to longing. "Ethan," she whispered, almost like a secret. "Lena," I said, her name tasting like sin. My father's voice echoed from the study behind her. "Son, you're home!" I tore my gaze away from her and turned toward him, the man who had given me everything except warmth. He looked proud, unaware that the woman standing beside him had once been the reason. I stopped believing in love. He wrapped an arm around her waist. "Ethan, meet your new mother." The world tilted. The air left my lungs. For a second, the thunder outside was quieter than the silence between us. Lena looked at me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. She tried to smile, but the pain in her expression told me everything. She hadn't forgotten. Neither had I. That night, as I lay in my old room staring at the ceiling, her voice from years ago echoed in my mind. "Promise me, Ethan, if we ever meet again, don't love me." And yet here we were, under one roof, bound by bloodlines and secrets. The rain outside didn't stop that night, and neither did my heartbeat. The next evening, the mansion felt like a stage, polished, bright, but filled with ghosts wearing perfect smiles. The dining room was lit by a golden chandelier, yet every flicker of light only deepened the shadows between us. My father sat at the head of the table, cheerful as ever, unaware that the two people beside him were burning silently in guilt. Horace, my stepmother now, poured wine into my glass, her hand trembling so slightly that only I noticed. Her perfume drifted toward me again, the same scent from a past that refused to stay buried. "So, Ethan," my father said, cutting his steak, "what made you come back after all these years?" I smiled faintly. I guess some homes never stop calling. Lena's eyes flicked up, meeting mine. For a second, we were both back in that summer by the lake, when she laughed in the sunlight. And I thought love was simple. Before my father knew her, before everything broke. She looked away first. "I've missed you, son," my father continued, "and I'm sure Lena has too. Isn't that right, dear?" She hesitated, just long enough for my father to notice. "Yes, of course," she said softly, forcing a smile that cracked at the edges. The rest of the meal passed like a play where every line had been rehearsed. Polite laughter, careful words, unspoken pain. After dinner, I walked out onto the balcony. The night air was cold, but not colder than the storm inside me. Then I heard her voice behind me. "You shouldn't have come back, Ethan." I turned. She stood there in a long silver gown, the moonlight tracing the outline of her face. Beautiful, broken, forbidden. "Maybe," I said. "But you didn't tell me you were marrying him." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "You disappeared. You didn't call. I waited, Ethan. But your father found me when I was at my weakest. He offered comfort. I thought you were gone for good." I stepped closer, the air between us tightening like a wire. "And now?" She shook her head, whispering, "Now it's too late." But the way her voice broke told me otherwise. In that moment, lightning flashed across the sky, and for a heartbeat, her reflection shimmered in the glass, two souls standing inches apart, bound by love they could never admit again. Inside, my father's laughter echoed faintly. Outside, the storm was beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of rain again. It had been 3 days, and still the sky refused to clear, as if the heavens themselves couldn't wash away what was happening inside this house. Downstairs, my father's voice boomed from his office. arguing with someone over the phone. I didn't care. My focus was on the woman in the garden, Lena. She stood by the roses, umbrella tilted, eyes lost somewhere far away. Every gesture she made carried both grace and sadness, the same contradiction that had once drawn me to her. I stepped out quietly.
You'll catch a cold.
She turned, startled. For a second, she looked like she might run, but then her expression softened. You always said that, she murmured. Even when I was crying in the rain. We stood in silence, rain whispering against the umbrella between us. Why did you really marry him, Lena? I asked. Her grip on the umbrella tightened. Because I didn't have a choice. What do you mean? She looked around nervously, her voice dropping. Your father isn't the man you think he is. I frowned. He's my father, Lena. She stepped closer, her eyes glistening. And that's exactly why you don't see it. He wanted me long before you left. He made sure I couldn't escape him. Not after what happened that night. The words struck me like lightning. What night? Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed behind us. My father stood at the doorway, his face calm but his eyes sharp. Too sharp. Ethan, he said evenly, join me in the study. We need to talk. Lena froze. I could see the fear in her face, not of being caught, but of what might come next. In the study, my father poured himself a drink. You've been spending a lot of time with your stepmother, he said without looking at me. She's lonely, I replied. He chuckled darkly. Lena always had that effect, making men feel responsible for her sadness. I stared at him. You talk like she's a mistake. He took a sip, smiling. Every beautiful thing is. When I left his study, I knew one thing. Whatever had happened between them wasn't love. It was control, and somehow Lena had become his prisoner. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her words. I didn't have a choice, and deep inside I knew I wouldn't rest until I found out why. Outside, the rain finally stopped, but inside that mansion, a storm far more dangerous had just begun. The next day, the mansion was unnervingly quiet. My father had left early for a business trip, and the staff whispered like the walls themselves were listening. I took it as my chance. Lena stayed in her room, pale and distant, refusing breakfast. I knew she wouldn't speak freely under his gaze. But now, with him gone, I could finally search for the truth he'd been hiding. I started in his study. The smell of tobacco and old leather hit me the moment I stepped in. Everything was too neat, too controlled, like him. But in the bottom drawer of his mahogany desk, hidden beneath files and financial papers, I found something that didn't belong there. A photograph. It was old, worn around the edges. Lena standing outside a clinic, clutching a medical file. The date stamped on it was 2 months before my father married her, and right next to her in the background was me. My blood turned to ice. I remembered that day. I had dropped her off at the clinic after she fainted, said I'd wait for her. But when she came out, she looked terrified. She never told me what happened inside. A week later, she vanished. Now here she was, my father's wife. The photo slipped from my fingers as I realized the unthinkable. He'd known her before I left. He'd known about us. The door creaked behind me. I turned. Lena stood there, her eyes wide, face pale. Where did you get that? She whispered. In his desk, I said, my voice shaking. Tell me what this means, Lena. She closed her eyes, tears welling up. I wanted to tell you, but he found out about us. I stepped closer. Found out? She nodded weakly. He followed me that day. He threatened me, Ethan. He said if I didn't leave you, he'd destroy you, your career, your future, everything. I believed him. Her voice broke into a sob. I thought staying away would protect you, but he didn't stop. He wanted me, and when he couldn't control me with fear, he offered marriage. The weight of her words crushed me. The man I had admired all my life had stolen everything. My love, my trust, my peace. I clenched my fists. You should have told me. She looked at me, trembling. Would you have believed me? I didn't answer because I wasn't sure. At that moment, thunder rumbled outside, echoing through the empty halls. The storm was returning, and with it the truth that would tear our world apart. From the hallway came the faint sound of footsteps. Too heavy, too familiar. Lena's eyes widened in horror. He's back. And in that instant, the door handle turned. The door opened slowly. My father stood there, rain dripping from his coat, eyes sharp as knives. He looked at me, then at Lena, then at the photograph lying on the desk between us. So, he said calmly, almost too calmly, you've been going through my things. I swallowed hard. You lied to me. You knew her before you married her. His gaze shifted to Lena, whose trembling hands clutched the edge of the desk. "Did you tell him?" he asked, voice cold. "She deserved to know," I said, stepping forward. "I deserve to know." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "What you deserve, son, is to remember who you're speaking to." Lena flinched. "Please, don't—" He cut her off, his tone turning sharp. "Don't what? Remind him that he's my son? Or remind you that you're my wife?" The words were poison. I felt something inside me snap. "You don't own her," I said. He laughed. "Ownership is a funny thing, Ethan. People give it willingly when they're weak. Isn't that right, Lena?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You destroyed me!" My father's hand slammed on the desk. "I saved you from him." "Saved her?" I shouted. "From what, love?" The room fell silent. The storm outside roared louder, lightning flashing through the windows, illuminating 3 broken souls trapped by choices none of us could undo. Then my father stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You think you understand love, Ethan? You don't. You think she cared for you? She used you, just like everyone else." I stared back at him. "No, the only person who used anyone here is you." For a moment I thought he might hit me. His hand lifted halfway, then froze, trembling. He turned his back, voice low. "You'll regret coming back here." He walked out, leaving the door wide open behind him. The sound of his footsteps faded into the hall, but the chill he left behind stayed. Lena sank into the chair, shaking. "He's not going to stop now." I knelt beside her. "Then we leave tonight." She looked up, fear and hope colliding in her eyes. "And if he finds us?" I brushed a tear from her cheek. "Then he'll have to face what he created." For the first time, she didn't pull away. The distance between us disappeared, and in the quiet aftermath of pain, our hearts remembered what it felt like to be together. Outside, the storm finally broke, wind screaming through the trees, rain slashing against the glass, as if the world itself knew what was coming next. Because when love becomes defiance, someone always gets hurt. We left that night. No suitcases, no goodbyes, just the sound of rain against the car roof as we drove away from the mansion that had swallowed both our lives. Lena sat in the passenger seat, her fingers trembling against the window. She didn't look back, and neither did I. But as the road curved away into darkness, I knew something wasn't over. My father wasn't the kind of man who let people go. By dawn, we reached the old cabin near the cliffs. The same place where she and I had met years ago. It hadn't changed. The same creaking floorboards, the same smell of salt and pine. For a moment, it almost felt like peace. But peace doesn't last when built on secrets. Lena sat by the fire, her eyes fixed on the flames. "Ethan," she said softly, "there's something you need to know before you hate me." I turned to her, my chest tightening. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "Your father. He didn't just find out about us. He made sure we met." My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "He sent me to you. He knew I'd meet you at that university event. He wanted to test you, to see if you were capable of falling for someone. Forbidden." I felt the world tilt under me. He planned it?" She nodded. "At first it was just manipulation. But then I fell for you, really fell. That wasn't supposed to happen. He lost control of his plan. And that's when he turned cruel." I stood there in disbelief, anger and nausea colliding in my chest. "So he used both of us, for some twisted game?" Lena's voice broke. "Yes, and when I refused to continue, he destroyed everything, my job, my family, my name. He wanted to make me need him." I turned away, fists clenched, every nerve in my body burning. All this time I thought we were victims of bad luck, but we were part of his design. Suddenly the floor creaked, heavy footsteps outside. Lena froze. A knock echoed through the cabin door, slow, deliberate, too familiar. "Ethan," came my father's voice, calm as death. "You've made a mistake." I reached for the poker by the fireplace, heart pounding. "Don't open it," Lena whispered. But I already knew. He wouldn't leave without finishing this. "Step aside, son." His voice came again, closer now. "She's coming home." I shouted through the door. "She's not your prisoner anymore." A long silence followed. Then a sound, metal clicking. Gun. I pulled Lena behind me just as the door burst open. My father stood in the rain, soaked and furious. Eyes wild, the mask of control finally gone. "I gave you everything," he shouted. "And this is how you repay me? By stealing my wife?" Lightning flashed, and for a second his face looked more broken than angry. "You were always the better man, Ethan. Even she could see that." He raised the gun. I stepped forward. Then shoot me. But don't pretend this was ever love. The thunder drowned out the next sound, a deafening crack that split the night. When the echo faded, Lena was on her knees, sobbing, and my father lay still on the floor, the gun between us. I didn't remember pulling the trigger. I didn't even feel the pain, only the silence. Outside, the rain washed the blood from the steps, as if the storm had waited for this ending. And in that silence, Lena whispered, "He finally let us go." But deep down I knew he never really would. Because some ghosts don't haunt you from the afterlife. They haunt you from inside your own heart. The morning after the storm, the world looked too calm, as if it didn't know what had happened inside that cabin. The rain had washed everything clean, except the memories that refused to leave. Lena sat near the window, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes red and swollen. The fire had burned out hours ago. My father's body had already been taken away by the police, who believed my story of self-defense. But no one could erase the truth that haunted me. I had killed the man who raised me, to save the woman he destroyed. For days we didn't speak. The silence between us was heavy, full of things we couldn't name: guilt, relief, love, grief. They all blended into one unbearable ache. When Lena finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "You should leave this place, Ethan. Start over. You deserve peace." I looked at her, tired, hollow. "And you?" She smiled sadly. "Peace doesn't belong to people like me. I have too many ghosts." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "No, Ethan, you can't spend your life trying to fix me. Your father's gone, and with him, the part of me that kept fighting." I shook my head. "I didn't save you just to lose you again." She stood, her silhouette framed by the gray light filtering through the curtains. "You didn't save me. You freed me. There's a difference." Her words cut deep, because I knew she was right. By sunset, she was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just the faint scent of lavender lingering in the air. The same scent that had followed me since the first time I met her. Weeks passed. The mansion was sealed off, the family name quietly buried under scandal. I sold everything, left the city, and started over in a small coastal town where no one knew me as his son. Sometimes I walk along the shore at night, listening to the waves crash against the rocks. And sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, I swear I hear her voice, soft, trembling, calling my name. Maybe it's just the sea. Maybe it's memory. Or maybe love doesn't die. It just changes shape, from passion to pain, from presence to echo. But one truth remains. She was the sin I could never confess, and the salvation I could never forget. Even now, when I close my eyes, I still see her standing in the rain that night, her tears mixing with the storm, whispering, "He finally let us go." And yet some part of me knows neither of us ever truly did.